Hey everybody, welcome to Whiskey and Wires. I'm John Bingham and I like guitar amps a whole lot. If you do as well, please subscribe and support the channel. Today, I have a very special guest. He is legendary amp builder, rack designer, and shaman of tone. It is Dave Friedman. What's up,
Wow.
Holmes?
Shaman of tone.
Yeah.
That's a wow. I have a new title.
Well, I was initially gonna say amp builder and star of Sorority Slut 6, Dave Friedman, but I wasn't sure how that would go over.
Whatever.
So I've got myself a Four Roses bourbon today.
So the world's coming to an end. So
That's right. I've never been a big REM fan, but god damn it, if that lyric isn't as true as ever right now.
Oh my
God.
It's
the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. I don't have, on my whole family, nobody's got a sniffle, nobody's had a flu. We've all been healthy as horses this year.
Excellent.
No colds, no nothing. And
keep it that way.
Yeah, and we're being told that it's coming to an end.
Well, it might, and now that we're discussing that, I think my whiskey choice was a poor choice.
Because?
Well, if the world's ending, I think I would want better whiskey.
Oh, you go up class, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I kind of went down class, people. Not my normal. If you've seen me before, generally it's Scotch, but I kind of went on the cheap, and we just have plain old Jameson here today.
All right.
I kind of got pissed off because my local liquor store raised the price on my Scotch I like by like almost $10, and I'm like, no.
What's your typical Scotch?
Belvini Double Wood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Belvini Double Wood.
I'm gonna have to try it. I have never had it.
12. It's quite nice. But
is it smoky and peaty like the Lafroig, or is it?
It's not like Lafroig. It's not it's not an Isles Scotch like Lafroig. I like Lafroig, but and I will take you up on giving me that bottle. I like Lafroig, but it's an acquired taste.
Joe Morgan said Lafroig tastes like a Sucrets that was in the bottom of your mom's purse in the 1970s, just rolling around with the old coins and the old cigarette ashes that were in there.
Okay, well, I don't know about that, but it might taste like burnt wood is a good analogy for it.
Yeah, I thought it tasted like a campfire.
I mean, for me, and of course, this will go against a bunch of this will upset a bunch of people, but I personally will do Lafroig only on ice.
Mm. What does that do to the flavor? I mean, obviously, temperature-wise,
well, it's
cold.
strong, as you know.
Yeah,
it's a very strong, potent, almost clean the paint off floor kind of flavor. It just cuts it a lot. There's a fantastic drink at a restaurant in Detroit called the Grey Ghost, though, that uses Lafroig, and it uses what is that drink called? Dark Cloud is what it's called, and I have a little angel in the other room that just told me, and it is some sort of maple liqueur.
Okay.
Mixed with the Lafroig, and it had like a kind of a sugar rim sort of on it, and a walnut syrup in it. Oh yes, that's my angel talking from the other room again.
Okay.
And that you'd have no problem drinking that. In fact, you would drink 6 of them and then go, because it literally goes down like candy, literally. And then you start to see, oh, maybe Lefroy is a cool mixer.
Yeah.
To mix with something kind of sweet, because you get the smoky, and then you get the something sweet, and if you're gonna make,
I think it might be called Strange Clouds.
Maybe it's Strange Clouds. It's called. I don't know. We're not sure. We can never remember the name, actually, though I've had many of them at this restaurant.
Sure. So you're
the old days when you go to restaurants.
Yeah. So you and I are both Detroit guys. I never talk about it, and a lot of people on this channel probably don't know that I'm a Detroit guy. Do you think there's something to our upbringings per se, or just the Detroit lifestyle that contributes to like your work ethic? And I bring up your work ethic just because it's clear from 1988 onward that you've got a lot of focus and a lot of ambition, hence now you have an amp brand that's doing as well as it is.
Yes, I think Detroit has something to do with that. I think there's something in the water there or something. I'm not sure, but yeah, I don't know. I've never. I think it's also how my parents raised me personally. Sure. I always was taught. Now, I grew up in kind of an affluent area, and so I wasn't extremely rich, but I wasn't poor either. You know what I mean? So. Sure. In fact, well, my mom was on a fixed income because eventually there was a divorce in the family, and so there was only a certain amount of money that went, and she got the house, and yes, it was a nice neighborhood and it was beautiful, but she taught me from the time I was really small that if I wanted something, I had to do something for it. I had to work. In some fashion, in some way, be it chores or be it something. So early on, she started instilling in me like, well, okay, so you got, at that time in Michigan, there was snow.
Sure.
And in these, recent years, there hasn't been as much snow as there used to be. But when I was a kid growing up, there was snow. I mean, pretty much after Christmas, there was snow till, March or April,
Sure, yeah, you usually get your last dusting sometime in April.
There was literally snow on the ground the whole entire time.
Yeah.
All the years growing up. So it's different now. But anyway, so we had this big circular driveway at our house and stuff that was kind of half on a hill, and we had a tractor with a plow where you could plow your own driveway and stuff. So it's like, yeah, so she's like, I'll, pay you, I don't remember what it was, $10, $15 if you plow the driveway when it snows.
Sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Boom. Done. So you start, and then there were other things. There was some lawn work and leaf work. I mean, we lived kind of in the woods, so the amount of leaves that dropped in the fall were, oh God! I mean, I could literally rake up leaf piles so big that you could hide a car in them.
Sure.
like to give you an idea, literally as large as a car.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, we could even burn some of those leaves and stuff.
Right.
At least on our property and stuff.
Yeah.
And
when you were a little kid and you were doing that, and when I say little, I just mean sub 10 or whatever. You and your buddies just like jump on the leaf piles.
Oh, absolutely, jump right in the leaf pile and all that stuff. But I was working and doing that stuff pretty young.
Yeah.
Pretty young, and so that instilled, oh, you want money for something, you got to do something for me.
Sure.
My mom didn't have enough money. I mean, she had enough money for us, but she didn't really have enough money to pay a lot of people, gardeners and things like that. So
sure.
Well, I was the gardener. I was the pool guy. we had a pool. I was the pool guy. I can,
Right.
you know. So I did all the gardening, all the pool stuff, all the winter stuff. Basically anything that had to get done, I did it.
Right.
I was kind of a hands-on guy. I remember early on when I was really young, when my dad was still at the house, they were remodeling the house and stuff, and there were all these workers and I would watch them and everything they did.
Mm.
I mean, in all sorts of trades and all that stuff. And, like I could tell you how to lay a sandstone wall. I knew how to dress the edge of the sandstone so it looks pretty and all this stuff. This stupid stuff that I've never used, but I still remember it because I just too. Sorry.
No, it's all right.
Luckily, it's not live. You can edit.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do a whole lot of that, but yes. No, that's all. Yeah. That's a different upbringing than what a lot of people get, especially in a place like LA where 60% of the people grow up in apartments.
Yeah, no, totally different. And but I was always, we lived on 3 acres of land with woods and stuff, So,
right, sure.
So as a kid, in my era of being a kid, I mean, you were out riding BMX bikes and doing your chores and exploring the woods and finding snakes and toads and doing horrible things and whatever. You were a kid, you were having fun, and you just didn't come home till nightfall. That's just
right.
the way it was. And like I've said in previous interviews and stuff, I was always the guy that I was watching those construction workers. Oh, how do they do what they do? Oh, that's cool. Okay. So I got into tools real early on, I got into messing around with carving and I got messing around with taking stuff apart and putting it back together and all that stuff.
Do you ever have to fix like the lawnmower or the weed whacker or any of that sort of stuff? Yeah.
Of course, you had to, because you had to figure out what broke and how to fix it.
Right. It's funny. It all leads to this, I guess.
Yeah, and sometimes I think that's a fantastic skills to develop as a kid. And I don't think kids today are developing those same skills. I think there's some information that's lost.
Sure.
Like I even think about my child and stuff. It's like he doesn't really know how to use a screwdriver. I knew at his age how to use a screwdriver.
Right. Yeah,
he can fumble around with it maybe, but
As a dad, because I mean you're not only all this stuff, but you're also a dad and a husband and all that. The some of that responsibility is incumbent on us to remember to make the kid hold the flashlight every once in a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when I was a kid, it was like that with my dad, where it was like, all right, hold the flashlight. And the real reason that they make you do that, I think, is so that you have to stand there and watch something being repaired or fixed.
Yeah.
And so I think the thing that's different now is when you and I were kids, and you've got a few years on me, but it was still the same in the 80s before the internet when I was growing up.
Yeah.
Where it was like there's nothing on TV, there's no handheld devices, there's no tablets, no computers in the house. What am I going to do? All right, I'll hold the flashlight. Today, my kids would be like, you're on your own. I'm going to go, chat on Kids Messenger or whatever on their device.
Or you back in the time there was nothing to do and there was only when I grew up there was I don't know 5 or 6 stations. That's it.
Yeah, sure.
Pre-cable.
Yeah.
I
can't imagine.
I had cable later on, but
right.
but
I mean, when did cable really happen? When you were 15 or 16, right? It'd be 85, 86.
I remember distinctly. So my best friend growing up was Marty Minuit, who runs Motor City Guitar in Detroit.
Greatest shops around. Sure.
Yeah.
What's up, Marty?
He and I we did everything together, man. It's like BMX bikes and this and that and racing them. And I raced. I used to race in races. I knew how to take them apart, put them back together again, to everything. And Marty had this thing, man. Early on, he had one of the first cable providers in Michigan, or something sort of like cable, was a service called On TV. And I don't know much about it. I don't know what the deal was with it. But it was an early cable provider. And I remember him having it. It was before I had it. So we were always watching at his house. And there was all this great music shows and concerts on it and all this great stuff. I mean, really great concerts and stuff. Like still just, I mean, like whole Night Ranger concert, a whole Billy Squier concert from the heyday. And so he had a habit. In fact, he has all this stuff. He recorded everything.
Right.
He was a huge proponent of recording, like VHS at the time, or Beta Max, or whatever it was at the time, of recording all this stuff. And he has it all still, supposedly.
No kidding.
He's digitized most of it, but he has a ton of it still. And in fact, I'm going to start hitting him up for some of this stuff.
Yeah,
because
that's cool.
There was some stuff that I've never seen again, like ever. Yeah. Like full concerts and things that I've never seen again. So I know he's got some great stuff. So I have to hit him up about that.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there a favorite? I'm assuming you had, like, everybody has favorites. Do you have like a desert island record from the 70s?
Oh man, that's really hard.
I know.
I went through a lot of eras of styles in
Sure.
in what I liked and when. My first records I can remember owning actually were a little disjointed, but there was first albums I actually remember owning was Elton John's Greatest Hits.
Mm-hmm.
Toys in the Attic from Aerosmith.
A good record.
Fantastic record. And in fact, in recent years, I repurchased that record because I still like to purchase stuff. I don't feel right about just, Spotifying it or something. I'm like, if I want to own the album, I'm just going to buy it. And
it's a relic of a lost generation.
Yeah, exactly. But I firmly believe that people should, be compensated for their work. I mean, they need, and Spotify is surely not doing it.
No.
Or not to the extent that they need to be, So I want to make sure that, people get money for this. They created an amazing thing. So anyway, so Elton John and Aerosmith, and then this is really going to date me. Then on 8-track, we had Sean Cassidy. Yes, I said it, Sean Cassidy.
Right.
But we also had Blondie.
It's a good one.
Which is a great one. Heart of Glass, that era. Sure. Blondie. And those are the ones that I, as my wife walks by saying, "You're old." Great. But, those are my first records.
Right.
I might be forgetting one in there, but those are my first things.
Man, I tell you, I listened to like No More off of Toys in the Attic.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. Desert Island Records, though, you brought that up.
Hey, give me one from 70s, 80s, 90s, and today. That'll
70s.
take off some pressure.
Okay, 70s. Led Zeppelin. Which Led Zeppelin though? Shoot. 4 maybe? I don't know. Any Led Zeppelin. Pick any Led Zeppelin. They're all equal to me.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm a huge Led Zeppelin fan, so it doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
80s. Well, the 79 count, that's close enough to 80, isn't it?
Sure. Go with it.
I'm going to go with that as Van Halen 2.
Van Halen 2.
Van Halen
That's
2.
interesting. Okay.
Van Halen 2 is my favorite Van Halen record, period.
Oh, we got to get into that. First, throw me your 90s and today.
Hmm?
First, throw me your 90s record and your 2000s record.
90s. Well, I could, considering I did 79 on that Van Halen thing, I could probably do
I think I wanna hold you to post Cobain on this.
I could probably do a mid 80s record too, though.
Okay, sure.
So mid 80s record. Let's see. Maybe. Oh. It's a big Rat fan, actually.
All right. So we got Out of the Cellar in 84.
Invasion
of Your Privacy, 85.
Maybe Invasion.
Lay It Down was one of the coolest riffs of that era.
Yeah, maybe an Invasion, yeah.
Okay.
Wait, which album was Way Cool Jr. on?
I don't know. That was after that, yeah.
That's a cool one, too.
Okay.
Well, okay, let's go Invasion.
All right.
And 90s. Soundgarden. Soundgarden or Alice in Chains. So
yeah, you kind of get like Dirt or
Super Unknown or
Unknown.
Dirt.
Did you like Super Unknown more than Bad Motorfinger?
Yes.
Okay.
I think the songs were better. Bad Motorfinger's great.
Right.
Anything that Cornell touched was great.
It's not wrong.
And I'm a huge fan of Euphoria Morning too, a solo record that he did with essentially the 11 band.
I don't know that record. I'll have to write it down and get it.
You don't know 11?
I don't know 11 or Euphoria Morning.
Oh, okay. So absolutely, you need Euphoria Morning. You need to buy that instantly, and you also need 11 Avant-Garde Dog. I think what's called. Actually, if you listen to the Euphoria Morning first, and then go to the 11 record, you'll go, oh yeah, that was them on that record, wasn't it? Essentially, it was 11 with Chris Cornell singing.
Okay.
So 11, Elaine Johannes was the guitar player, and the singer, the girl in it was his wife. Not Nadia something.
I wouldn't know.
I can't remember off the top of my head. But they were heavily tied in with the Queens of the Stone Age people, and friends with all the Cornells and all these people, and they've appeared. They had appeared on Queens of the Stone Age records, and all that. And in fact, I could be getting her name wrong, unfortunately. But she died. Actually, she had a brain tumor or something. So his wife died. And Elaine Johannes later was in Them Crooked Vultures.
What did she do in that band? That's John Paul Jones and Dave Grohl. And
yeah, Elaine, the guy, Elaine Johannes, was the other guitar player.
Got it.
With John Homme and Grohl and John Paul Jones.
Got it. Okay.
He's an amazing guitar player. Actually, you should look him up on Instagram and stuff. He has some unbelievable stuff. It just
All right.
yeah. But oh my God, those 2 records. Oh my God, those are amazing records. If you don't know, you should know now. You're gonna go, what? What did I miss?
Dude, I do. I swear to God, I do that every few years. I have this big time problem where I can't appreciate anything unless I uncover it myself. I don't know if you're at all like that, but I have people all the time that will say things like, "Oh, dude, you should check this out. It's really good." And I'm just like, "Fuck that guy," whatever. And then 10 years later, I'm like, "Whoa, this is the best thing I've ever heard," because I've got serious problems.
Well, the funny thing is, well, here's the interesting story. So the band 11 in the early '90s, band 11 never got huge, but they had a big cult following. But in the early '90s, a friend of mine from Detroit, this hairstylist friend of mine, came out and visited me. This must have been '91 or something. I hadn't seen him for but 4 or 5 years or something. He came out and visited and stayed with me, and we kind of went around to a bunch of clubs and stuff at the time. And so we stumbled in, and we were literally club hopping. And we stumbled in, and there was tons of music clubs at that time. And we stumbled in this music club called Raji's in Hollywood that is long gone now. And we stumble in, and this band's playing, and we're starting to watch this band, and I'm just like, oh my God, they're amazing. My God, they're amazing. And it was a 3-piece. It was a guitar and a girl on keyboards playing bass lines and different things on keyboards and singing, then a drummer. And it turns out that was 11 that I stumbled into. And out of the blue. I think this was before they even had released this record I was telling you about, before all this. And I was blown away. I mean, I was blown away in such a way that I can't remember of another time that I've walked into a bar and just saw a band that captivated me the same way.
Sure.
So, just a little trivia story.
11. All right. It's going to be something I'm going to have to check out, obviously. Yeah. I'm going to take the fact that I trust you with it instead of just going, forget that, and discovering it in 10 years from now. I'll dig into it now. So, yeah. So that kind of ties into a question a little bit, though, that somebody else asked. One of your amp dealers, as a matter of fact, Halen Music in Missouri, Nate White, who is the guitar department manager, I believe, there, as well as a really good guitar player. You got to hear this guy. Asked what your top 3 favorite recorded guitar tones are.
Oh. Okay.
So would Van Halen 2 be one of those?
Van Halen 2 absolutely is one of them. Period. AC/DC Black and Black.
So good. I appreciate you saying. I feel like you threw me a bone with that
one. Narrowing them down to 3 is kind of rough, people.
It's impossible.
Oh, it's kind of rough because I have many more. So now I have to make this third decision on what is that thing. And God, I'm probably going to forget something that I probably would have chosen before this. But I have to say, I love the guitar tone from King's X on Gretchen Goes to Nebraska.
Okay. That's such a unique tone. There's nobody that sounds like that.
No, and it was a great tone. And I like the fact it was a signature tone. And if you look at kind of what I picked too, obviously Eddie Van Halen had his signature thing. Absolutely. I just Van Halen 2 personally was my favorite of them. Fair Warning a close second, and then Actually, I'm going to say I don't love the first tone, which is the first record tone, as much as I like two. So
the thing I love about that is that you, you are the amp guy. You're the one that people benchmark right now, not to blow up your skirt or anything, but you're a little bit the benchmark, and so is Van Halen 1. Whenever you're talking to these nerds, they're always like, that's the record.
Van Halen 1, yes, no, I don't think that's the record. I think Van Halen 2 is the record.
You really think so?
I really think so. I mean,
okay.
Van Halen 1 definitely came out of the gate and blew everyone away because obviously he had Eruption and, Ain't Talking About Love and it was great, but it was I just think all his tones are very similar throughout the years, but there's a similar thread through them all. But sure. I just think I like the natural sounding thing of Van Halen 2 a little bit more.
Sure.
I mean, don't get me wrong. 1 was fantastic and blew me away, but I'm also a big fan of 84.
84 is great, yeah.
84 is great. Panama, Drop Dead Legs, all that stuff. That's great. It's cleaner though, but equally great.
All right.
Yeah, and I'm probably forgetting some other stuff. I mean, I honorable mention. 3's cool too. Women in Charlotte First is cool. I mean, that's cool.
Oh, we're still on Van Halen. I was just talking about picking 3 record tones.
3's hard, yeah. So honorable mentions would be anything from Rat, probably Invasion or the record after.
I think Invasion. Personally, I like the sound. I think there was too much wash in that sound for my taste.
George Lynch, whatever the record with Dream Warriors on it.
If you ask me, the Dokken days, that was the only good guitar tone. That would be Back for the Attack. And so on Back for the Attack, you had Dream Warriors, you had Kiss of Death.
Oh, was that Back for the Attack?
Yeah.
Dream Warriors and Kiss of Death, and that's it. Dream Warriors.
It's a good record. It's a really good record.
Yeah, that was the tone. That was the one tone that he really had it right on, I think.
I like what's that name of the record? The one that has like Just Got Lucky on it from '84.
Oh yeah.
What is that one called?
Just Got Lucky. That's not Tooth and Nail, is it? No.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that was Randall's. Randall's Solid Stamps.
Well, what I was going to say is that record, I like the songs on that record, but the tone is just not good. But some of it might just be the production. The production's off. I don't know what kind of budget they had for that record. Then they had their big blow-up record, which was Under Lock and Key.
Under Lock and Key, though, isn't that what Dream Warriors is on? It is.
That's after. No. It's after that. I'm
Under Lock and Key.
100% positive.
That's the tone I like. Under Lock
and Key had Never Unchain the Night.
Yeah, that's
the
it.
Hunter.
That's the record for the guitar tone I like.
I think Back for the Attack. I like it better on Back for the Attack, but this is not about me. I thought Kiss of Death had the best tone that he ever did.
Well, that's good too. I mean, don't get me wrong. That's great too. I mean,
I liked his tone with Lynch Mob when he did Wicked Sensation, and then he had a solo record in '94. Oh, I can't remember what that was called, but he had a solo record in '94 that had some good sounds on it too. I hear all of the time people say you don't need 100 watts, and I hear people say any more than 50 watts is too much. You hear all kinds of things alluding to that 100 versus 50 versus getting something smaller. Do you have an opinion on volume? Because everybody's really talking about how much volume it is when you start comparing 40, 50, 100 watts. Like, could you answer the question, who needs a 100-watt amp?
I mean, to be honest, the difference between a 50 and 100-watt amp is negligible. But in a Marshall style amp, how the power supplies are done in the 50-watt amp versus the 100-watt amp are different.
Mm-hmm.
One's a half-wave bridge rectifier, sort of like a Fender, while the other one is a full-wave bridge rectifier, and they tonally sound different. It's not about the wattage necessarily. They actually physically sound different, the power supplies. So you can make a 50-watt amp with sort of the power supply of the 100-watt power section and get the same sort of tone at a lower wattage. There is a bigness to the 100-watt power sections, but that, I think that more is attributed to the power supply,
Sure.
like I sort of just was talking about.
So is it fair to say that there's maybe a misconception about 50 and 100-watt amps?
There might be a misconception. I mean, really, honestly, a 50-watt amp and a 100-watt amp, there's probably very, very little in dB-wise difference.
Would you say?
I mean, I think this no volume thing is a bunch of bull these days. I mean, I really do, and I think music is suffering for it because there is a certain, sound guys will talk about, well, I can mix it better if it's all controlled, right. And yet somehow they still don't put any guitar in the PA, and I think they just don't know what it's supposed to sound like anymore. I mean, I think depending on the era, how old this sound guy is, will be very dependent on what the mix is going to sound like. I think if it's a younger guy, he's going to be, low bass heavy, drum heavy, vocal heavy, lacking guitar,
right?
A lot of subs. If it's an older guy, he's going to have a lot of guitar in the mix, and it's going to be more what it should be. As far as stage volume goes, I truly believe that it should, if the drummer's a certain volume, I think the guitar amp and bass amp should be brought up to the appropriate volume to match the volume level of the drummer. So you could stand in front of this band and hear them, and it sounds fine, Then you should mic it and then put it through the PA.
I like your style.
I mean, that is a tried and true approach that has been done for years, and it was never broken. Why are you trying to fix it? It wasn't broken.
All these guys just want channel isolation so they can fidget with their the mixing boards to make everything as clean as possible.
Yeah, I mean, and it just doesn't sound good anymore. I'm sorry. I mean, I saw a lot of concerts. I've seen a lot of stuff over the years. I've seen everyone at every volume level and all styles of stuff. And when you have a band that has volume and has stuff on stage that has volume to it, it translates into the front. It translates into the crowd. It just there's an energy that's there that doesn't exist if you have a completely quiet stage. I'm sorry.
Bingo. No, no reason. That's you're so exactly damn right.
If you're playing on in-ears, I'm not saying it can't work in certain situations. I'm not saying a pop band might be good, but a rock band all on in-ears with no cabs on stage, oh my God, it's just like
hey.
It's like a blow-up doll versus the real thing.
Pay attention, kids.
I mean, it's just not. Rock and roll is about aggression, and I posed this to a metal guy, a younger metal guy, and I said to him, I go, so you're doing in-ears and all this stuff. How is this metal? Isn't metal about volume and aggression? you know, volume and aggression and like feeling it. And like, how do you get into it if you don't feel it? You know what I mean? Like, you're on in-ears and all this, there's no dynamics to the whole thing. It's like if you play a loud amp, even a reasonable volume amp, I'm not even saying necessarily loud. I'm not saying kill everyone. But when you dig into it hard, you hear it come out harder. And when you play it light, you hear it come out light. In like, say, a modeler or something like that through all in-ears, it's like no matter how hard you dig in, it doesn't come out louder. Right. No matter how light you play, it doesn't. It's the same. There's no nothing. And what part of that thing in your in-ears is saying, yeah, boom, you know?
Definitely don't have any wind blowing your pant legs.
No, you need that in order to feel it. I mean, this is my concept.
Look, I would say from my perspective,
bullshit. I don't believe I am.
No, but from my perspective as a guy who likes to play live and stuff, I would say it's important to remember for people that are in rock bands, your job is to put on a show for the audience. That's your sole job. If you're on stage and you're having more fun, that will translate into your show, and the audience will pick that up. If you're on stage and you feel like you're in a clinical environment, like the control room of a recording studio, because you got your headphones on and you're not feeling the energy,
it will not translate.
It comes back.
John,
I have an anecdote about that. I don't know if you
go for it.
Care to hear it. So you and I are both pals with a guy named Barry Pointer.
Yeah.
And Barry is a producer. He does a lot of music stuff in Hollywood. Barry took me to go and see Queensryche not long ago. I love Queensryche. You know, I like the whole prog thing of the late 80s, early 90s. Maybe it makes me a dork. I'm sure it does. I liked it. Like Operation Mindcrime and Empire, I loved that. So I go and see them, and John 5 opens for them. John 5 was in Marilyn Manson and David Lee Roth, and incredible guitar player. And this is, I'm just going to out them because it needs to be said, and they need to fix their ways. They are lost. Queensryche sounded so flat on stage, it was insane. And they were using Kempers. This is not a knock necessarily against Kemper, but it is a knock against being able to pick up stage volume and energy, because there is none. There was no cabinets on stage like you're talking about. Nothing but these synthesizers effectively going into the mix, and they sounded really, really flat. John 5, who opened for them, crushed. Absolutely crushed. The energy was there. It was a three-piece band with a BE-100 Deluxe, right? Yeah.
Yep.
It was a three-piece band. Bass, drums, and him, and they sounded so crushing. It was just the most fun. It was the first time I've had fun at an instrumental show in a long time.
Well, the funny thing about that is there was a what was that tour called? So as you know, as we went to see Sponge recently.
Yeah.
And those guys were on this tour a couple years ago. We're on this tour, Summerland tour or whatever. And it was, it was a tour. So essentially it was, Everclear and Sugar Ray and Lit and Sponge. Not necessarily the best choices of bands, but anyway, they're my buddies, so we went out to see them, and we saw them at the Sabian Theater or whatever in Beverly Hills or whatever, and Sabian Theater.
Don't talk shit about Everclear.
And my wife's like, "Don't talk shit about Everclear." Well, anyway, so I'm not really talking shit about Everclear. So what became really Sponge opened, and Sponge, as you saw them recently, are playing amps, real amps on stage, real cabinets, mic'd up, reasonable volume, and the singer Vinny just walked out on stage, and he stood there, and he has this stage presence, and he's just standing there, and you're going, that's a rock star. That's a god. That's the shit. You know, he's not even saying anything. And you're just going, there's a presence, you know, mm-hmm. which is an interesting thing. And truly amazing rock star guys are like that. They just walk into a room and it's just like, oh, what? Oh. But you see the Sponge play, and they kicked ass pretty much like you saw recently with them. Kicked ass, sounded great, killer, powerful, like a rock band with feedback and everything. And that's the key of their sound, feedback from the cabinets. And they use that a lot in their music. Yeah. And that makes it dangerous sounding, the feedback and stuff. When you don't have feedback, it's not dangerous sounding. It's not right. And so you see them, and then you see Lit come on with using Kempers, no cabinets, no nothing. And I think some of the other bands too were similar to that. And just like same PA, same everything, same bill, no power. Just limp.
They shouldn't have been called Lit. They should have been called Limp.
Yeah, exactly. And so it really became obvious to me right then and there that I needed to go to the bus and just sit there and not watch this, which I proceeded to do.
Well, let me ask you this: outside of your Friedman amplification business, you're also an amp rig designer, which you've been doing for as long as I've been playing guitar.
Probably since you were born.
No, come on now. How young am I? All right, so
when were you born?
81.
Yeah, well, no, I haven't been doing it since then. So okay, close.
You're not that old.
I'm not that old. Since 88, 9.
Okay, there you go. So in doing that over the years, people must have come to you and said, I want to use whatever the digital piece of equipment was, whether it be Axe-Fx or Kemper or, 10 years ago, the 11 rack or whatever. Has there ever been one of those where you've been impressed and said, this is pretty good?
Oh, okay. So, I mean, an Axe-Fx can be quite good. It can be good. It depends on how you use it. Is it quite as good as the tube thing? Maybe not. But it can be good. But I like it into cabinets.
Right.
No matter what, I seem to like this stuff into real guitar cabinets. So, I mean, I had done rigs for the Offspring. I've done rigs for the Offspring for years. And at one point in time, because of shipping and amount of money and this and that, they decided to switch over to the Axe-Fx's, which I didn't necessarily agree with, but I understood the rationale behind it. But they did retain live cabinets, power amps with live real guitar cabinets, not full range cabinets. And
true power or solid state power?
Solid state power, matrix power amps,
okay.
But which are quite good. They're great. It's a great power amp for this application. I like those power amps a lot. Andy's a friend of mine. And we sat there and basically for 3 or 4 days when I made these new rigs. I had the old tube rigs. And this isn't like a Kemper or something where you just model the amp model and all this. We sit there and physically listened back and forth in real A-B funk fashion until I could dial in the tone to be virtually indistinguishable from the tube rig.
Mm.
At least the perception through the cabinets was that. This was a long. I mean, every patch that they used, effects and everything in their tube rig needed to be replicated. So this was a long, drawn out process, and kind of frustrating at times because it wasn't quite the same.
Sure.
But we got it really. I thought it was we did a good job, but that was a lot of effort, man. Like I'm talking like two people, Mark Day and myself. Mark Day works for Fractal now. He used to work for us, and we worked really hard on getting it really right. So it's good. It's good, but the funny thing is the sound man is still like, man, I wish they'd just go back to a tube amp.
Yeah.
Because he's like, it doesn't sound as good as it used to, and this and that. I recently actually did another tweaking session where I went to their production rehearsals with Bob Rock.
Mm-hmm.
And so Bob Rock and I are sitting there tweaking years later what became of the sounds years later after they've upgraded things and tweaked things and done stuff, and it was all out of whack. And so literally Bob Rock and I were sitting there tweaking the guitar tones for the Offspring real recently. This was like November or October or November or something.
That's amazing.
That was fun, though. That was fun. It was like, wow, I'm sitting here with Bob Rock tweaking the Offspring's guitar tones. It's kind of a surreal moment. I'm like thinking to myself, what the fuck?
Right. Absolutely.
Bob's a cool guy. I haven't met him before, and he has a Friedman SS100 amp.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Steve Stevens.
He used that. He used that on Black Veil Brides when he did their album.
Okay.
And I'm sure he's used it on some other stuff over the years.
I have to imagine that these days there's an awful lot of your stuff on an awful lot of records. You might know of some of it, but I bet you don't know of a lot of it. There's probably a lot.
Oh, I don't know of a lot of it. Yeah. Funny thing just happened. So I am a huge fan of a Canadian band called July Talk.
That's another thing I'm going to write down.
Write that down because, John, man, they're cool. They have 2 albums and an EP, I think, or maybe just 2 albums out. They're a reasonable sized band in Canada. I mean, they won I think their second record won a what's the Canadian Grammy? It's the
oh, I should know this answer. I can't remember.
I had it. It's on the tip of my tongue. Oh. But July Talk, huge. It's funny. You met David Black from Detroit.
Oh yeah.
And Dave Black goes, "Hey man, you ever check out this band? We were like showing some videos to each other, and you should check out this band July Talk. They do these really amazing. They do a video almost for all their singles, and they do it with they do it all in a black and white format. So they have all these videos, and it's all sort of the similar kind of black and white format in their videos, and they're just super cool, kind of art pieces as far as the videos go. But so recently, there was a new song that came out, and I watched it, and then I was on YouTube, and I saw some other video footage of them, and I saw live video footage of them on something recent, and I'm like looking, I'm like, wait, That's one of my amps. So the guitar player was using 2 amps, and he was using what looked like a Run 20 watt amp into a 4x12, and then he had like a Fender DeVille or something, I'm assuming for clean kind of stuff also. And I'm like, oh man, I need to contact him. So I'm in the process of that right now, because I want to send him a message on Instagram and say, hey, I'm a huge fan of your band, man.
That's awesome. He's gonna love it.
If you ever need anything, let me know, man. I can help you out.
That's awesome. He's gonna love it. So a buddy of mine, John Stipple from Korg USA, as a matter of fact. What's up, John? He wants to know if the JJ came from an original design or if it was coming off of something else, like a pre-existing amp.
Yeah, it originally. So when I started working with Jerry, it was. Well, I guess it would have been Friedman amps then, but it might have been Marshall amps originally. I'm not sure. I don't quite remember. But yes, it's based off of BE amplifier. But Jerry uses 2 amps. So one is a BE channel, basically slightly changed BE channel. And there's a couple components changed in his recipe. Mm-hmm. And he also uses the second amp on the JBE setting of his amp, and he uses them in tandem. So the JBE was designed to be the higher gain one, and the other one was designed to be more clarity and lower gain. So he runs one lower gain and one higher gain. And the lower gain one goes into 25-watt greenback speakers, and the higher gain one goes into a vintage 30 loaded cabinet. Now that cabinet combination stems back from when I did his rig on Dirt. So I did his guitar rig for Dirt record.
All right. Stop there. That just kind of exploded my whole head. So you did his rig for Dirt? Yes. Did I ever tell you that Dirt's probably a top 5 record for me?
Nope, but you did now.
Okay. All right. Continue. So tell the Dirt story. All right, I got to know.
Originally, so this comes back. So originally, I was working. Oh man, when did I first meet him? I mean, we established his rig idea. He was using a Bogner Fish preamp for Dirt. Originally, for the record before, he kind of had a rig put together that actually had a Boogie Studio preamp in it, which was not really great for him. And so that was the very first tour they did. So then he came in, tried this Bogner Fish preamp, and it was a IntelliVerb, Rocktron IntelliVerb effects processor.
Sure.
And at this time, it was a Moss valve power amp.
Okay.
The bigger one. And we determined that he liked one cabinet being greenbacks and one cabinet being vintage 30s. So that essentially was the Dirt tour.
Okay.
He later messed around with some power amps after I was involved. I heard he did a Mesa Boogie 290 power amp and some other things. But initially, it was the Bogner Fish preamp, the Moss valve power amp, the IntelliVerb effects processor, and one cab greenbacks, one cab vintage 30s.
Okay.
So Fast forward. So a friend of mine, amazing sound guy, Tom Abraham, one of the best sound guys in the world, I believe, is working for Alice in Chains now. I've known him from working with Marilyn Manson and Garbage and all these other people. I had him on our Tone Talk show. And Tom is a good friend, and he starts working with Jerry again, or Jerry now. And this was right before Black Gives Way to Blue comes out.
Another good record.
So new singer, and Tom's like, dude, you got to come help me out here, man. Because Jerry needs help and this and that. I go, well, I fucking worked with Jerry back in Dirt record, and absolutely, man. Yeah, I'm in. Done. I'm there. And so I went to rehearsals and like, okay, what does he need? What do we need to do? What do we need to do this? And so we started establishing something. And at the time, he was using a Bogner Uberschall and a Bogner Atma. And
he wasn't using a Shiva in an Uberschall?
No, the Atma was at the time.
Oh, okay.
But there was a Shiva in there also at some point in time.
So, all right, whatever.
We started doing that, and we started doing a rig around this, and I started coming in and helping out with the rig again, and essentially I built a rig for him for the new tour. And then after a while, I'm like, maybe you should try one of my amps that I had been starting to do. He tried that. He's like, yeah, that's pretty close. It's pretty close. But I need like a heavier tone also. And like on the record, we blended like lower gain tones and heavier tones. So I kind of want to do a lower gain tone and a heavier tone. I'm like, okay, no problem. So then I developed his JBE sort of tone on the on his amp, which is a higher gain clipping mode. So we just started developing these amps over time, and then eventually he started using two of my amps, one in the higher gain mode, one in the lower gain mode. So on stage, he has one totally dry with no delay, meaning, and one that is higher gain that has delay in the loop, and that's his tone, the blend of the two. And at that point in time, I reintroduced what he originally had back in the Dirt record. Was like, well, the lower gain tone, why don't we use the greenbacks? And the higher gain tone, why don't we use the vintage 30s? It only makes sense. Mm-hmm. Because get more attack and punch from the vintage 30s for the higher gain, and then you get the more woody thing from the greenbacks on the lower gain. And so it came full circle. It's like, oh, I forgot about that.
No kidding.
And so
did he remember you?
Did he remember me? Yes, he did. Eventually he did.
Okay, yeah, because I wonder if like anybody from Alice in Chains would remember anything from
well, I remember
10 years later.
I remember sitting in this little room with Jerry and a couple cabinets and a Bogner preamp and this effects and the power amp and Lane Staley.
Yeah.
In a little tiny 10 by 10 room, listening to this stuff when we originally did this early on. I remember Lane sitting at this desk. Like I remember it like yesterday.
So we're running a lot longer than I generally do this show because you've got a lot of crazy stories that are very cool. To help speed it along, I'm going to ask another question from
Ask more
another one
questions.
of the. Yeah, I'm gonna try and get you some of these guys that were like chomping at the bit to ask questions. Steve Longworth from Detroit, Michigan,
Hey,
asked. Yeah, Steve Longworth, he's a longtime friend of mine, asked if you've ever made an amp just for you, and
oh,
what was it that it sounded like?
no.
Wow, really?
Um, I'd like to say maybe every amp is just for me.
Okay.
But just for me. No. The one amp I still own that is like my number one amp is this old 50-watt Plexi Marshall that I have. And that amp with a Variac down to 90 volts cranked up is fucking God. And that's still my favorite amp to this day.
What
That's
year is that?
68.
Okay.
68 Plexi Marshall. That's still my favorite amp to this day. I bought it for $300.
Figures.
And it had a mod on it once, and then it was reverted to stock by Stevie Fryette from VHT/Fryette amplification, and it has remained in that state since then. And I loved it since he reverted it back to stock. That's where the majority of my amps come from. That's the home base of amps for me.
Okay. That's very
With
cool.
a very no, so that's the home base tone. So the thing is most of my amps have to be able to get that tone
Without a Variac.
without a Variac. Get that tone plus more tones.
Sure.
So I have to be able to get that basic tone. The B100 Deluxe will get that tone to the fucking T. More so than any amp I've ever done. And plus a bunch of other tones that, are higher gain or less gain or whatever. Yeah.
Sure. All right, I'm gonna go on. That's freaking awesome.
By the way, any of these people that say that, oh, Dave amp doesn't sound like a Marshall or this or that. What Marshall?
Oh, well, yeah.
No,
I think a lot of the guys that I am friendly with are so nerdy into this that they understand what you're saying.
What Marshall? What Marshall?
Right.
I mean, like,
I've never heard two that sound the same.
Plexi Marshall, I can guarantee you a B100 Deluxe can nail the Plexi Marshall. If you're talking 800, well, okay, well, that's fine. But remember that the 800 was a bastard stepchild of what was cool Marshall in the 80s. I mean, like, literally, I remember the 800 as being, oh, yeah, the 800, not that great. Oh, fuck, it's not that cool. It became later kind of cool, but...
Yeah. That's what it's looked at today. Like it is.
Everyone at the time, when the 800 came out, was like, no, this sucks, man. This nowhere near as cool as the old amps.
Really? Oh, wow.
No, that was the thing. It was the shittier transformers. Everything was shitty. It was that was the way it was. No, 800 sucked.
Right.
But, and in that time frame, so I'm talking like maybe like a time frame of like 1988, 89. Like the consensus was, yeah, this 800 kind of sucks, man. The old 70s amps were way better. way, way, way better. So now this 800 is this holy grail, but really it was a piece of shit.
That's so funny. It seems that every generation you get a little bit of that. Because I remember when I was coming up, when I first started playing, it was the 800's good, but God, the 900, they got rid of the choke. They made diode clipping. The 900 sucks.
Horrible.
Yeah.
Forget about the 900. Forget about anything. Forget about anything after 800.
Yeah.
There was nothing good after 800.
Well,
to be honest, nothing good after 800.
Well, the thing that's good about that fact is that even though they're not there, there was that proliferation of boutique builders that came along, making better versions of what they were not making.
Yeah.
Like yourself and Reinhold and Stevie and everybody else. So
Absolutely.
luckily there's guys out there that are carrying the torch. Darren Stroud would like to know if you think multi-channel. You know Darren?
Yeah.
All right. Well, he would like to know if multi-channel amps have as good of touch sensitivity as a single-channel amp.
That's tough to say.
Now,
here's why that's tough to say. So, generally speaking, if you're talking about single-channel amps, you might be talking about vintage-style amps that you're deriving the distortion from them being on 10.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, they are probably more dynamic than something that has preamp distortion.
Sure.
So that pretty much, that's it. That's
it.
Yeah.
That's it. Do you think that you lose anything with having your electrons flowing through a relay switch with a very small connector inside? Because I've heard that theory before too.
Not really. No.
Okay.
But I mean, if you're talking between non-master volume amps and that are just cranked up, there's a difference.
There you go. Yeah. Stuff's
but
not rocket science, and what you're saying makes perfect sense.
If you have a non-master volume amp, best thing you can do is buy yourself a new Fryette, the new 100-watt attenuator, the new 100-watt power station. I don't know what the official name is, but the new 100-watt version of the power station.
Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
You like that better than the UA that's out there? I know that's another one that people seem to like a lot.
Totally different thing. But the Fryette one is just amazing, man, because you get a great load and you get an effects loop in there and you get infinite power out of the KT88 power section. Man, I tried that and I'm like, God, I cursed him out. I'm like, God damn you. F you for making a better product than your previous power station. But I've been friends with Stevie forever, so,
Sure. Yeah,
he embraced the ass handing I gave him. Yeah. So buy that, people.
There you go.
If you got an old amp and you got an old high watt, you got an old Sound City, you got an old Marshall, buy the new 100-watt Fryette power station and you are golden, man.
There you go. All right.
Here's how you set it. There's two little voicing switches. You set the bass switch all the way up. You set the treble switch in the middle, and you set the presence and resonance off. resonance or depth or whatever off. And use your vintage amp and crank it.
There you go.
It's
all right,
killer.
folks. I'll put a link in the description to the Fryette unit.
Right, absolutely, definitely do it because
So
the new one I've had the old one. I had the old one forever.
Okay.
And it's great, but the new one is just like 10% more.
That's all you need. So you said that the new Fryette has an effects loop in it, which brings me to another question that I hear all the time, and I'd love to hear your take on it. Some players are vehemently against effects loops for sucking tone, and I'm curious what your opinion is.
Depends on the architecture of what you're doing. So, like the Fryette thing, that's post amp. So the Fryette thing, you're going into this power station. So you're taking your whole high watt Sound City, whatever amp you have, you're cranking the living piss out of it. You're going into a load essentially, and then the load is sending out the send.
Sure.
It's going to your effects, and your effects are coming back into a power amp. So that's essentially what's happening. So that is the thing that we've been doing for years with rigs. So that's not affecting your tone at all. I mean, at that point, like the effects loop and the tone thing, well, that comes into amplifier design. But if you're talking a vintage amplifier and you're doing the Fryette way, and you're doing a load and then you're loading it down and then doing effects and then a power amp, it's not. I mean, everything affects everything, right? But
of course,
but it's not really.
What about, forget about the Fryette thing? What about modern amp design with
modern amp design with loops and this and that? I mean, it depends on how the amp's designed. It's hard to say. If it's more of a vintage style amp, I mean, maybe the loop shouldn't be there. If it's one of my amps, sure, the loop's fine, no problem. We're deriving most of the tone from the loop. We're sending to the effects and then back to the power amp. Fine.
There you go. All right, that's fair enough. I'm trying to see if I missed anybody here. Did we already answer the question from Brandon Ortega? What is Dave's favorite whiskey?
No, we didn't. Shit. Favorite whiskey. So Scotch whiskey, I would say at this moment, Belvini Double Wood. I think it's 12 year.
Belvini Double Wood 12 year.
Someone hit me to Alice in Chains whiskey.
Oh.
Today, someone hit me to this.
Is that like some small batch boutique crafter?
I don't know. He's going to give me a bottle.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm curious about that. I'm gonna look that up. I'm gonna write that down.
I really don't know. I have a picture of it, and that's it. And I'm like going, wait, most of these guys are sober. How is this? How is this happening?
It's it's really funny about any of the artists that I talk to about doing this show, doing Whiskey and Wires. I'm not kidding. I've talked to 3 different guitar players that said, "Nah, man, I can't do it. I'm sober. I don't drink at all." I'm like, what? What happened? Where's all the drinkers? What happened to the party? The sad
whiskey
thing about
this doesn't mean anything. It just means
get some whiskey and talk about things with wires. I should talk to some suspension bridge designers. That has wires.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man, oh man. Well, I've pretty much exhausted this list here.
We could probably get you Steve Stevens to talk to you, even though he doesn't do whiskey anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the funny thing is everybody's kind of like an anymore thing. It's like the rock and roll's partied out.
Oh, God, it's horrible.
Isn't it? Makes you wonder when you see news reports of like Justin Bieber like taking his race cars around the neighborhoods inappropriately and doing shit like that. And then you think about it and you go, he might be the last rock star that's out there doing like rebellious rock and roll things.
It's horrible, dude.
Tell me about it. What a realization.
God. Oh, that's horrible. Okay, well, now that you've ruined my night with that image, great.
I apologize. Anyway, this has been awesome. It's funny. I've known you for a while, and this is the first time I've heard some of these things, and I think everybody out there is going to appreciate hearing some of these stories as well. Really freaking cool.
Yeah, man. Sure, of course.
All right. Well,
I'm here.
I'll call you next time. My kid's bugging me for a bedtime story. I'm going to get you on the phone. Put you on speaker.
Well, I could have. I might have it. Might bore him to death though. But
they ask Uncle Dave about the time that he wired up a rig for Sponge.
Oh yeah, there you go.
My kid will be out. All right, Dave. I got to go make some chicken for the kids, so I'm going to cut this off. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you spending the time.
You know, I can hook you up with some other. You should hook up with Steve Stevens and some other people.
I'd love to talk to Steve Fryette.
Yeah. We should hook up with some other stuff. So I know.
Yeah. Any amp nerds you can throw my way, I'm happy to do it. Folks out there, if you're interested in the products that Dave does, we didn't even touch on the pedals or guitars, by the way, which are awesome. But go to friedmanamplification.com. If you are interested in having Dave build you a rig for home touring, club gigs, whatever, feel free to contact him at racksystems@yahoo.com. And yeah, man. Yeah, this was a good time. I appreciate it.
Good times.
All right. Catch you on the other side, brother.
All right, later.
See you, folks.
Bye.